the League. This is our empowering voters. That's informing you and defending democracy. Okay, next. Oh, I have to stand here. I was a teacher that moved around a lot. Okay, next. Okay, I'll give you a little. Okay, and all of you know that. That's why you're here. You have power when you vote. And you will all receive your paper ballot in the mail. You can also, if you want, you can go to the polls and vote. Early voting or the day of the day of the voting, you can do that. If you can do ballot tracks. You can find out when your vote was sent to you, your ballot was sent to you, when it's been received by the clerk's office, when it's been counted. If there's troubles with signatures, they will notify you. It's called curing the ballot. And there's a way that you can also make sure that, if you haven't noticed that your ballot has been counted, you can always check with the county clerk's office and make sure that everything is going. So there's lots of opportunities to have your place to vote. This year there are 14 statewide ballots. 7 were placed on by the lawmakers, so we send these people to the state of Colorado, to the state House, the state Senate, and then sometimes they can't decide what to do, so they give it back to us in the way of putting it on the ballot. So some of them were placed on by the lawmakers. 7 will change the state constitution. Colorado has one of the longest constitutions, 200 amendments, and we keep adding, and some of this will be adding amendments or adding wording to it. The U.S. Constitution has 27. 5 will offer change to the state statutes, and then 2 were referred to by voters that require state law to be changes. She's a friend of mine. All right. Blue Book. The state legislative council puts out the Blue Book, and it has an enormous amount of information, but you can also find other sources. But if you have questions, they've given you all the fiscal information. One thing that was passed in the state of Colorado several years ago, a yes vote means yes, and a no vote means no. So you don't have to say, if I vote yes, does that mean I'm really voting yes or no? One of these ballots in '74, it was one of those. If I vote yes, is that the way? But now, if you vote yes, it means yes. If you vote no, it means no. All right, so we're going to start with first, Carol, Amendment G. No, that's right.
So I want to give a shout out to the Legislative Action Committee of the League of Women Voters Colorado. This year, they have done an extensive amount of media work. So all of our PowerPoint slides were done by the Legislative Action Committee, and it's a huge step up from where we have been in the past. So this is the property tax exemption for veterans. I think the key thing that you need to know about this is that basically the Homestead Act has a provision for veterans and for seniors. And what they are proposing is that in the past, the Homestead Act has had only exemptions for veterans who have had 100% disability. So what is 100% disability? It basically means it's a medical diagnosis, and it means that you have a disability that affects your life to the extent that maybe activities of daily living, instrumental activities of daily living, and other things have been impaired. So those veterans have received the Homestead Act. This is a proposition to take veterans who are disabled but have had a medical diagnosis. But the key thing here is that they are medically affected to the point that they are not eligible for employment. So the way it is right now is that the Homestead Act is for 100% disability. That has nothing to do with your status of employment. So they're recommending that veterans who do not have 100% disability but are not eligible to work, that they are going to be covered under this proposition. It was introduced by the legislature, and it's going to require a 55% passing. It's estimated that approximately 3,700 veterans will come under the Homestead Act if this passes. And your Blue Book has a very nice breakdown of the amount of money that's going to be physically impacted if this passes. So, yes, these 3,700 recommended will be under the Homestead Act. No means that they will not.
Amendment H is judicial discipline procedures and confidentiality. This was also placed on the ballot by the legislature. It will be a constitutional amendment, so it requires 55% of the vote. If it passes, it creates an independent board made up of citizens, lawyers, and judges to do conduct of judicial misconduct hearings and impose the discipline. It would remove the judges, currently it's under the state Supreme Court, it would remove them from having direct influence over this particular committee. This came about by the Colorado Springs Gazette did an intense story about a scandal in the state judicial branch. The state legislature had hearings on this, and from the hearings they proposed 2 bills that were passed and this amendment. And so what this would do is to take any judge that is accused of doing having misconduct, that it would go before this new panel that would be would do the hearings. It would also be having the information would be more transparent than what it has been. So it also, the bills that they passed in the legislature, plus this to be voted on this year, they also wanted to work on judicial discipline procedures and workplace culture also. So that's the impact, the cost, they feel it's going to be only like $50,000 a year. That would be provide training to the members of this newly created judicial board and rulemaking. So if you vote yes on this one, that means that a new panel would be set up of judges and lawyers and citizens to evaluate misconduct of people in the judicial branch. A no vote would keep it the same it is now. The second part of this is, and not in your book there, is judicial retention questions. In the state of Colorado, judges are appointed by the governor for a 2-year term, a probationary term, and then after 2 years they are voted on for retention. Should this judge be retained in office, yes or no? In your blue book, there's several pages talking about these judges. A couple of things I noticed. There are apparently 11 people that evaluated the judges. They had interviews, they had evaluations from people they worked with and whatever, that they presented it to the Judiciary Review Panel. Most of the judges got a 10-0, and one person recused. There was always one person that recused. I don't know if that person wasn't there or they just recused for everything. I don't know. So if you see in some of the judges, one of the judges had 8-0 or 8-3. 3 people voted not to recommend this person for retention. So on the ballot, and there's Supreme Court Justice, Appellate Court Justice. There's also district judges. A county judge, a county judge in Chaffee County. Justice Bull is up for retention. So you can go through those. If you don't feel like you want to go through them, you don't have to vote for the judges. You don't have to vote for anything. You can always skip things on your ballot if you don't want to vote for something. You don't have to vote. If you want to do some study and read more about the issues, then you're welcome to do that. But that's the judges' retention, and that everybody's asked. So that's a long part of the ballot is on the judges' retention. Okay, Carol.
Next one is Proposition I, and I think that's loud. It sounds loud to me. Am I standing in the wrong place?
No, you're fine.
Okay. So this comes out of the legislature. It's a 55% pass, and it basically is going to change in 20. Let's see, where was it? In 2020, the state of Colorado abolished the death penalty. And because of that action, this is why this proposition is coming forth. So before 2020, if there was a serious crime that was committed, where the evidence was that the person was most probably guilty of the crime, and there was a possibility for the death penalty, then judges have the discretion not to give bail to that particular individual. So when the death penalty was abolished, what happened was that people who were in that category where there were serious crimes, where there was evidence that there was likely culpability, and this was a potentially very dangerous individual, the judges were in a quandary. Should we provide bail for that person or should we not? And most judges were leaning towards the fact that they would provide bail. So this is going to go back to the concept that if somebody has committed a violent crime and there's a lot of evidence against them, that judges once again have the discretion to not allow bail. This actually went up to the Supreme Court, and on June 20th of 2023, the Supreme Court basically said that you do not have to, you have to provide bail for potentially violent offenses. So this is to reverse that decision, so that if you vote yes, it means that bail cannot, on the discretion of the judges, be set. If you vote no, it means that it basically can be set. And I think it's interesting. There's some, the con of this is basically they're not certain if it's going to make any impact on the person going out and perpetrating another crime. But that's basically what, is it H? I. Okay, that's what I. It's all about.
And that one also requires a 55% vote because it's a constitutional amendment on that one as well. Amendment J is Amendment J. This was placed on the ballot by the legislatures. This deals with the definition of marriage, which is in the Colorado Constitution. Back in 2006, Amendment 43 was passed that defined marriage as between a man and a woman. 9 years later, in 2015, the U.S. Supreme Court overruled in a 5-4 decision that same-sex marriages was legal across all 50 states. That made the amendment in the Colorado Constitution not legal anymore. This is on the ballot that would like to have that the same-sex marriage would be legal in the state of Colorado. So part of this is on the reason that should the Supreme Court decide to go back and revisit this issue and change their mind, and that it would be up to each state of how to do it. Colorado has right now on the Constitution that marriage is between a man and a woman. So what this would do is that it would define that a marriage is between two adults in same-sex marriage in the state constitution. If it passes, it repeals the obsolete language, and then if it does not pass, it remains in the Constitution as same-sex marriage. Because this is just this is a simple majority on this one. Because it's a simple majority, because it's already in the Constitution, so this is changing the wording, so it's not putting a whole new amendment in the Constitution. So this requires a 51% vote in the Constitution. Okay.
The
next one. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the next one is Proposition K. and it's pretty straightforward. This is kind of cut and dried. It's going to extend the election deadlines 1 week. So if you are collecting signatures for a citizen-led ballot initiative, it's going to be 3 months and 1 week. If the legislature has a resolution, it's basically going to be 3 months and 1 week for anything that was on the ballot. The reason behind this is because the county clerks and the Secretary of State felt that there was a very tight deadline to get ballots out to veterans and to people who lived overseas. This is a legislative initiative, and it will require 55%. I have this one also. So this is something that many of us collected signatures for. This is a citizen-initiated ballot, and at the current time, in the state statute, which was passed in 2022, there's a statutory right to abortion. And this, in Colorado, that currently definition is that a pregnancy can be terminated at any time. This proposition, if you vote yes, it means that that statutory law is going to be embedded now in the Constitution. The second part of this amendment has to do with the payment for people who are on Medicaid or who are part of the county, city, state workforce. Currently, taxes that we pay pays for those people's insurance, health insurance. However, it does not cover the payment for a pregnancy termination. That's for Medicaid recipients and also for employees of any type of government. That was passed by a citizen initiative in 1984. This second part of this proposition is that that's going to be reversed. So if you're on Medicaid, right now you cannot have payment or access to abortion unless you can pay out of pocket as a general citizen. And right now, people who are employees of government cannot receive any reimbursement for a pregnancy termination. So this is a two-part ballot initiative. One, it gets into the Constitution so that it's basically much more solid in its future as time goes on. And then the other one part is that funds will be allocated for payment of a pregnancy termination. Is that pretty clear?
Okay.
Okay.
Amendment 80 is a constitutional right to school choice. It was placed on the ballot by a group of citizens who collected petitions throughout the state. The lead organization is called Advance Colorado. It will require 55% of the vote in order for this to pass. It's a constitutional amendment. Currently, Colorado does have school choice, but it's in the statute. It's not in the Constitution. It's law, and it can be changed at any time by the state legislatures. This would embed it into the state constitution, and it would establish new constitutional definition of what school choice is. It would include neighborhood and charter schools, private schools, home schools, open enrollment options, and future innovations in education. We all know there's future innovations, right? The result is that there's no change in the state law or any changes that way. The citizens who brought this to the voters feel that this needs to be enshrined in the state constitution, that parents have the right to choose the type of education from kindergarten through 12th grade, and it limits the authority of the legislature, state, or national school boards to make changes. There is no immediate fiscal impact. because it's going to be depending on how the measure is interpreted by courts and the state legislature in the future. Currently, public schools are funded by taxpayers. Private schools are not. So this would enable private schools, homeschoolings to receive state funding, and how that would have, that's what that's putting on here. Okay, that's the right to private of choice in school choice. Proposition JJ, this I'm sure all of you are very excited about. This is about sports betting as tax revenue. And in 2019, Colorado's voted for legalizing sports betting. And there is a tax of 10% that is placed on this, and the money is coming into the state. When they estimated how popular sports betting would be, they underestimated, and they set the cap at $29 million a year. And then they said anything above $29 million should go back to the casinos and the sports betting places. Now, I'm sure if you're one of those operators in here, you would know that money that you're getting back. Okay. What this would do, it would say, we want, instead of above the $29 million that's being collected, that any above that would, instead of going back to the casinos and the sports betting operators, it would instead go into water conservation funds. And it's a 10-year, I think this is the one that's a 10-year project. This is a simple majority. It was referred by the legislature, and it had supports by both the Democrats and Republicans in this particular group. If it passes, it would allow the states to keep sports betting above the revenue amount previously approved by the voters, which was $29 million. And if it fails, anything above that, it's like the debrucing, the money would not, debrucing it usually means comes back to the taxpayers, but here the money would continue to go back to the betting establishments for that. Let's see if there's anything else I can add about that. Under TABOR, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, the state must get voter permission to retain additional money. So that's why they're asking you, the voters, should they retain this money and keep doing it as they set it up in law 2019, or should they change this? They're estimating maybe a $3.79 million more collected over the next 3 fiscal years that would go to the Colorado Water Conservation Board. And Greg Felt, one of our county commissioners, actually serves on that board, okay? So you can always ask him, well, what are they spending the money on? So the Colorado Water Conservation Board does have a website. They have a list of future projects. It's buying acquisition of water, it's buying land, it's all sorts of things. So that's what this would be, and this is not sunsetted. So anyway, that's, if you vote yes, it would allow the state to keep money above the $29 million and use it for water conservation projects rather than sending it back to the casinos and the sports betting people. Okay, but you can still keep betting, that's fine. The more the merrier.
So the next one is Proposition KK. This is a legislative initiative, and it's going to require a majority vote. This was a bill that was presented by one of the House legislators, and the purpose of it is to try to get funding that is consistent across Colorado for victims of violence, for veterans, for adolescents, because Colorado has not had in the general fund enough money to support those 3 major areas: victims of crime, adolescents in school that are having mental health issues or have had, unfortunately, exposure to violent crimes in the school or around the school. This was basically initiated because of something at the federal level. I don't know if any of you have heard of VOCA. It's the Violence of It's Victims of Violence Act. It's a federal program that was funded by primarily fines and other revenue from people who had perpetrated violence against another person. So if there was a sexual assault, if there was a assault and burglary, if there was domestic violence, any type of violent crime, the people who perpetrated that were given fines. And because across the United States, judges are no longer imposing those fines, VOCA has gone from a high of about $58 million to right now about $8 million. So that is a crisis for states. So $10 million with 50 states obviously is not going to fund victims of violence, veterans, mental health, or the adolescents. So this bill is, I think, very creative. It's a taxation bill. And basically what will happen from this is that there's going to be a 6.5% tariff on the following things. And it's going to, this tax will go to vendors and also to manufacturers in the state of Colorado. So those that sell or manufacture firearms, any part, composition, or accessory for a firearm, devices that go into manufacturing, and ammunition. So all of those things in the state of Colorado for vendors and manufacturers will be have an excise tariff of 6.5%. There's already a federal tariff on these types of sales, but primarily it's only on handguns. So the 6.5% is going to be funded in the following way. This is in your blue book. Basically, victims of crime will get estimated $30 million per year. Veterans' mental health, because the Veterans Administration is cutting back on veterans' mental health services, they will be allocated $5 million. Children and youth behavioral health crisis response system will receive $3 million, and then there will be a school security of about $1 million. This, if it passes, will allow for the first time in the state of Colorado adequate funding for all of these services. A yes means that you support it. A no means obviously that you don't. But it's one of the ones that the Legislative Action Committee looked at a great deal during this last legislation.
The next one is Proposition 127, which prohibits bobcat, lynx, and mountain lion hunting. This was placed on the ballot by a citizens' initiative, and it needs to pass by just a simple majority. And there's a long list of people who are supporting this and a long list of people who are opposing this. Hunting in the state of Colorado is viewed as a traditional right that people have done throughout centuries. It is currently maintained and regulated through the Carta Parks and Wildlife, and every year they allow so many licenses for various animals to be taken as a form of managing the various herds, whether it's deer, elk, mountain lions, whatever. This particular bill would end hunting seasons for mountain lions and bobcats, and it says would bar the states from ever allowing lynx. Lynx are not hunted now. They're on the endangered species list, so they are not even being hunted now. But mountain lions and bobcats are. In 2020 to 23, in that 3-year span period, there were 800 bobcats taken and 500 mountain lions is what were hunted at that time. Many of the licenses may come from out of state. Some of them are within state. This particular amendment, or this particular bill, would limit no hunting of these animals. Ranchers and farmers who are seeing depredation or killing of a livestock by a mountain lion would no longer receive any kinds of compensation. So currently that if a mountain lion kills your sheep, then there's some compensation, just like you've been reading about the wolves and things like that. This would allow certain scenarios for lawful killing. Big cats, and they're not trophy, they're just big cats, could still be killed by state or federal employees as part of a population management efforts or with state permission by ranchers to prevent livestock depredation. So if there is an issue, they can maybe go to the state wildlife and get some permission to do that. People who accidentally hit an animal with their car would not be penalized. I don't know how many people have ever hit a mountain lion with a car, but a deer maybe, yeah. This would remove mountain lions from the definition of big game, making landowners ineligible for any state reimbursement for damage that they had done. If it fails, hunting would continue of bobcats and mountain lions as it is currently regulated. And like I said, lynx have never been regulated or have never been hunted. They were reintroduced in Colorado in 1999, and they are still considered an endangered species. The people who put it on the ballot claim that the populations can naturally regulate themselves, and they want to restrict the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission to stop issuing licenses. And like I said, sometimes on the TV ad you might see the word trophy hunting, but this bans all hunting of these particular animals. The fiscal impact, the CPW gets some revenue from hunting licenses. They are paying out some expenses to ranchers and farmers, and I don't have the figures on those particular things. So a yes vote on this makes it illegal to hunt, and damage reimbursements would be not eligible anymore, or if you vote no, it would continue as it is today. Next one.
So this is Proposition 128, and it is a citizens' initiative, and it requires a majority vote. The purpose of this ballot initiative is to increase the amount of time that a person has to serve for a violent crime from 80% to 85% from 75%. It is going to take discretionary parole and not allow it until 85% of the sentence has been served by the individual. I think it's important to know what the violent crimes are: first-degree murder, second-degree murder, sexual assault, aggravated robbery, kidnapping, arson, and burglary, which led to death. The idea behind it for the pros is basically that it keeps people in prison for a longer period of time, making the general public safer. And also it reduces the opportunity for the victim of the crime to have interaction with a person at a time which is 75% versus 85%. The other purpose of it is to people who have committed crimes the second or third time. It allows for a longer sentence for them also that they have to serve before they have a opportunity for parole. This will come into effect on the 1st of January of 2025, and so anybody who's serving time at the current time until January the 1st, this will not apply to them.
Okay, this next one is creating jobs. This is establishing a new veterinary professional associates, or a VPA. So this is brought on as a citizen initiative, but this creates a mid-level profession for veterinary associates degree. It's placed on the ballot by citizens, and it passes by a majority vote. And what this is, to be a vet technician, it has at least a 2-year associate's degree, and a veterinarian has 8 or more years of education. And this would allow people with a master's degree in veterinary care who could diagnose animals, perform routine surgeries, and order or perform tests and procedures under the supervision of a licensed veterinarian. That kind of seems like if you have a physician's assistant, they're under a doctor. This is kind of like a VPA. under that. So if this passes, it establishes a new profession to provide care alongside veterinarians and veterinary technicians and people with certain specialties. And if not, it would allow the way it is today. It was brought in by the citizens, and there's a group of people that feel that there's a need for affordable veterinary care, and this would then hopefully provide that. Those opposed to it, many of the trained veterinarian organizations feel that it's not, that they need better training, and it's best be left in the hands with the veterinarians and how it's done now. So that's the pros and cons, or the yes and no's on that one. Carol?
Apologize, I missed this one. So we're just going to be reading this one. Basically, this is a citizen initiative. It takes the majority of vote. The purpose of it is to greatly increase the funding for police departments throughout the state of Colorado. Currently, Colorado contributes approximately $3 million, and this is going to increase it to $350 million. The other aspect of this proposition is to increase the amount of funding for families whose loved ones has lost their lives in the role of a police or a peace officer. So it will be increased to $1 million compensation.
And currently, I think I read that the compensation for police officers who are killed in the line of duty, their families are entitled to like 70% of their current income. So the money would come out of the state coffers that's used for some things that would add $1 million for death benefits and more money for state law enforcement also. If it fails, it would keep the same as what we have now, what is working at that, how the benefits are working now. The next one.
So the biggest thing about this one is the amount of state general funds that will go into law enforcement. So it increases, as I said, from $3 million to $350 million.
This next one, you're all on your pins and needles, excited to knowing about ranked choice voting. All right. So this is one that is going to create an all-candidate primary. So, you know, in Colorado we have primary elections, and the two parties come up with their candidates for the primary, and if you're registered as a Democrat, you get to vote in those primaries, or if you're a Republican, if you're an unaffiliate, you can choose to vote in this one or that one. You can't vote in both of them, and I know the clerks say they get people still sending in both ballots, so if you're unaffiliate, only send in one ballot. So this is going to change this. And there are some states that have adopted this, but most have been adopted by municipalities and so on. And so it's called ranked choice voting or runoff voting. But basically, let me explain it briefly, and then I have this little cartoon thing that I'll show you that'll just explain it well. So anybody wanting to run for the like U.S. Senate, the House, governor, it's not the president, and it's not local, but it's the people in between. That if Karen here wants to run, Marilyn wants to run, they just get signatures, people get on, and we have a whole ballot of people running in the primary. They might be Republicans, they might be Democrats, they might be who knows what, but they're on the ballot. So as a citizen, you get to vote, and everybody gets to vote. And you get to go and you pick out your candidate that you want. So those are all tallied, and it then goes to the general election. There, the top 4 candidates from the primary are put on the ballot. And then you get to do your choice. You get to vote for 4 of them in order. Well, I'm going to vote for Karen first, and Marilyn second. Oh, no, maybe I'll do Marilyn first, Karen second. You put them in order. You maybe just want to vote for one, and you don't want to do the second, third, and fourth. Or you don't like the 4th one, you get to do that. And then we have this tallying system for this runoff. And let's see if we can see this little Post-it note.
Well, purple is the the best, but if I can't have purple, I want blue. And if neither of those wins, I guess I can live with orange.
Now, let's count up everybody's votes.
So that was just voted.
Under ranked choice voting rules, it's not enough just to get the most votes. You need a majority.
More than 50% of the votes.
Purple's ahead, but it has only 7 votes.
It needs at least 11 to win.
So we eliminate the color in last place.
Sorry, orange fans, we're going to your second choice.
2 more for green,
1 for purple.
but no color has 11 votes yet.
Still no majority. Bye-bye, blue.
1 more for purple.
4 for green.
And we have a winner.
The ranked choice voting way.
Oops. All right, so you can see that. Sorry, I'll get this back on. Thought you were a headset. All right, so the idea is that the people who put this on the ballot were the same group of people that put on the amendment that we would now choose our redistricting with a bipartisan panel. Remember when they redistrict, we had 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 4 unaffiliates that went across the state and decided how we would divide up for our new reapportionment in our new districts. So this is the same group of people that are putting this on. And if it passes, it won't go into effect immediately because there's a law in there, a provision that says at least 12 municipalities have to use it first before it can even be used at the state level. So that's kind of a, it's not immediately to be used. It would be for U.S. Senate, U.S. House, the Governor, Secretary of State, Treasurer, Attorney General, Colorado Board of Education, Regents of CU, oh yeah, that's on your ballot too, Colorado Senator, and Colorado House of Representatives. And so it's called an open primary, so everybody would get to vote for the candidate of their choice, and then the top 4 would go to the general election where this would be the process of doing that. As you can imagine, there's a lot of pros and cons on this. It's very complicated. So anyway, but you can study that and kind of feel more about how that would work. It's sometimes called an instant runoff voting. So if the candidate gets 50% right off the bat, then they're elected. But it would then, so maybe your second choice might get elected rather than your first choice, or maybe but you didn't get a choice, you only get to vote for one. So anyway, it will not take effect until there's certain other criteria is met. It was brought on by a citizen initiative, and they wanted to conduct nonpartisan elections and to create a more representative and functional government throughout the state. That's their wording. They want to provide candidates, regardless of political party affiliation, an equal opportunity to make the general ballot. The oppositions claim that it would give an unfair advantage to wealthier independent candidates and may cause confusion or mistrust of election outcome for voters. And, you guys are all here to learn, so you're not going to be confused. You're going to figure it out. So they're not giving you enough credit on things, I think, The fiscal impact, they don't know yet. They're going to have to, hire staffing to figure out software updates, and, so there's a lot to go with that. The last 3 ballot issues are local ones. And the county clerk does not have the blue book. She sent out something that looks like this. It doesn't even look like a book, okay? So if you lived in Salida or Buena Vista, you got one of these. If you live in, if you live in Poncha Springs, you got just one of these. So how many Poncha residents do we have? Welcome, Poncha resident. All right. We'll talk about your ballot in just a minute. Okay, there's 2 ballot measures for people in Salida and Buena Vista who are in the Chaffee County Housing Authority to vote on. One is called 6A, and what this does is to raise a 0.05 sales tax that would be to help raise funds for the Chaffee County Housing Authority beginning in January 1st of this coming year. taxes were not to exceed the more than 3.1 million in the first year. And I asked about that, and they said, well, that's by, according to Tabor, they have to do an estimate of how many taxes they will collect. Taxes, you know, you pay in January, April, they get collected, and then they get dispensed out at a different time of year. So they've estimated this. And then they could collect more than that if they raise more than that after that particular amount. This would be used to acquire property, subsidize, offer incentives for constructions and whatever, for low and moderate housing. If you support this sales tax, then you would vote yes on this. And this, just a minute here, double up my notes here. This is sunsetted in 11 years, 12 years, that this tax would end. Okay, so that's one thing, to have a sales tax. The second one is to allow this is called 6B. Do you have the next slide? 6B would allow the Chaffee County Housing Authority to keep the money they currently have. They have incomes coming from the municipalities, but they also receive grant money. And they have, if the grant money is bigger than what they are allowed to keep, they have to return it, not to the taxpayers, they have to return it to whoever granted them the money, okay? So this particular one is asking the taxpayers to debruce, and debrucing means, I don't know how many of you are new to Colorado, but Douglas Bruce was able to get the citizens to pass an amendment to the Constitution called Tabor, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And what that says is anytime the government collects more money than it has established it should, it needs to refund the taxpayers the revenue, what they have coming back to them. So this is safe, but this particular one, they have not received the money, a grant in particular. They'd like to keep it to fund Jane's Place and some other things. So this would allow them to keep the money and not have to give it back for funding. So one of the things on this that we looked for, the Chaffee County Housing Authority had a nice summary on this of supporting why this should be supported. There was no official or formal opposition to it. There was no group that came out opposed to this particular amendment. Dan R. on KVRH Radio, do you know who I mean? Dan R. KVRH Radio. He did a 30-minute podcast with a person supporting this and a person opposing this. And it's, you know, I listened to it, I thought it was very informative, it brought in a lot of information. It's 30 minutes, I knew that we couldn't do justice to this other than the brief things in our 5 minutes that we're doing. But if you're interested, please go to KVRH Radio on their website, go to the top there, it says podcasts, you click on that, and the first thing, it says news, and under the news thing is this discussion, this conversation he had with these two gentlemen that are the pros and cons. But the gist is that the second one would allow the Chaffee County Housing Authority to keep funds that they have and keep getting funds as they can. And the first one would be to add a sales tax that would be sunsetted, meaning that would stop in 12 years, that you wouldn't collect that tax anymore. The second one for the gentleman in the back, the Poncha Springs resident. All right. Poncha Springs is asking for a 1% increase on right now they have a 2% sales tax, so they want to add 1%, which brings it up to 3%. And they want to use that money, the title says, for law enforcement and parks and recreation. And so, and they also had to say that it would not increase for the $4,670,464 the first year. They had to estimate what they thought they would get the first year, but that's what they have going on that particular one for Poncha Springs. If you live in Buny or Salida, you don't get to vote on those, and Poncha doesn't get to vote on the Chaffee County Housing Authority. If you have questions, if you'd like to bring them in, pass them in, we can ask questions for people. Karen will pick some up, we'll do that. Let's see, I was going to say something else. That ends the portion of our pro-con. You should be getting your ballots this week. I got notice that mine was in the mail, And sometimes that's nerve-wracking if it's in the mail. But my ballot is in the mail, so I know it's in the mail. So you should be getting yours too to vote on. And you can take as long a time as you want. November 7th is the day of the election. You need to have it returned by 7 that night. And they suggest, excuse me, 5th, yes, you're right, 5th, thank you. I'm just seeing if you're paying attention, and you are. Excellent, excellent. All right, November the 5th. And if you decide to mail it, do it early. But here it's so convenient. There's a drop-off in front of the Chaffee County Courthouse. There's a drop-off in Buena Vista. There's early voting will open up about a week before. If you have questions about your ballot and things like that, you can go in, or your enrollment. You can do that also early. Has the Department of Wildlife taken position on Proposition 127? No. My understanding is that as a government agency, you cannot take a position on something that's on the ballot. Even like a school district, as a school employee, and there was a bond issue as a teacher, I couldn't come out saying, that I wanted to have that. So no, they have not. Not exceed 0.5%. Yes, correct, 6B. Not, is 0.05, 0.5%. It's a half a penny. A half a penny will, hey do you, or whatever that is. Okay. All right, so thank you all for coming, and one quick.
There was another question with your paperwork.
Another question. Oh, here it is. State funding for private schools, yes. So if the one that would allow charter schools, state funding would then go to private schools, homeschooling, and everything defined as education. But we don't know how they would decide that funding. But yes, funding would go to those entities also. Okay.
You said that Sligo would receive ballots for 6A and 6B, but shouldn't those actually go to all of Chaffee County?
Poncha Springs is not part of the Chaffee County Authority, so they are not part of that. But the rest, oh yes, you're right. And members of living in Chaffee County, yes, you're right. That's what I do. I live in Chaffee County. Yes, thank you, sir. That was a very good question.
I was confused because we received
Got
the thing on 6A, 6B, but we don't live in one of the towns.
That's right. So yes, and county residents. So Chaffee County, Buena Vista, and Salida all are part of the Chaffee County Housing Authority District. Poncha is not at this point. Okay, so yes, if you live in those places, you get to vote on it. You're not the gentleman in the back, but we don't get to vote on his sales tax. Okay, thank you. And if you want to just maybe 5 minutes, and we'll go over the league positions. The league is supporting the veterans property tax exemption. Through the study, they feel that that's an important need to include that, to make it better for not seniors. What's the word?
Aging adults.
Aging adults. Everybody's doing it, right? The judicial discipline procedure and confidentiality, that is also strongly supported by the league, to have this independent panel that will then start reviewing judges and their being accused of misconduct, and taking it out of the hands of the current judicial part of the branch that is doing it. The constitutional bail exemption for first-degree murder, the league does not have a stance on that. They have not done an intensive study on first-degree murder and what this would involve. So the league did not take a stand on number I. Repealing the definition of marriage in the Constitution, so it is can be same-sex, very definitely. The league is a strong supporter of gays and lesbians and transgender people, or we support everybody, men, women, children, we support everyone. So that's very definitely, we're in part of that. The league also would like to modify the constitutional election deadlines to make them a little sooner, so that people have more time to, the clerks have more time to read them and get them printed and whatever. So the petition signing, you'll have a week less to sign petitions. So that's one of the give-offs for that. constitutional right to abortion. The League has always been a strong supporter of women's reproductive rights, women's health, and this is part of the health initiative, so the League is a strong for that. The right of school choice, the League has taken a stand against this. The League has been a strong supporter of public education. The funding in the state of Colorado is not very good. Colorado is one of the lower states for the amount of funding they pay per kid. It's paid by state taxes and local taxes, so the state league is opposed to this particular one. Sports betting, yeah, let's collect more money. So the league, because the money would then go to be used with the water conservation projects, and so the league sees a great need to have more water conservation projects. The firearms and ammunition excise bill, as Carol very well explained, the money would then go to many social services that are underfunded now, and so it's not saying you can't buy guns, you can't go hunting, but you would pay more and that excess money would go to these social programs.
I'd just like to make a comment about that. The real sad thing is if you want to look at a very good series, the Colorado PBS has done a series about the horrible plight of nonprofits in the state of Colorado in rural areas that support victims of sexual assault and victims of domestic violence. It's really a sad read, but I think it's a read for everybody to undertake. This, for the first time, would allow funding that's adequate for those three groups: adolescents, veterans, and victims of crime. So this was one of the bills that was very closely followed by the Legislative Action Committee, and not only did we give an approve, but we gave a strongly approve to this one.
Can you repeat where that was at? PBS?
PBS, Colorado PBS. It's a 4-part series on the horrible state for victims of crime in Colorado.
Thank you, Carol. The League has not taken a position on the prohibit mountain lion hunting. It's not something that we've ever studied. Doesn't mean we can't, but we've never studied that, so the League does not take a position on it. Parole eligibility for crimes of violence. It's interesting, the League does have positions on justice and crime, but not enough to have a stand on this particular one, that we didn't have a strong enough stand on that. The Veterinary Professional Associates, the VPA degree, the League did not have a stand on this either, for or against it, so that one's open. The funding for law enforcement, the League took opposed to this one. They're not opposed to law enforcement, they're not opposed to money going to law enforcement, they're not opposed to money going to the widows of people who died, but the money would come from the general fund. And $1 million per person in bereavement, when now they're getting 70% of whatever they're earning, which may not be much, I don't know. But the League has taken a stand against this one because they feel that the money needs to stay in the general fund to go into education, to go into other social services. They feel that this law as it stands is okay. You know, there's probably.
I'd like to add that if it's left as it is, they get medical and that kind of thing for the rest of their lives.
Repeat that.
Repeat that, please.
No, you.
Oh, so Eileen is saying that the widows and families of peace officers killed in action get medical treatment and what else for the rest of their life. They get compensation as a widow's bereavement. And as a side note, I don't know if they are any police officer killed for any reason. I mean, I don't know how that is worded. You know, in line of duty.
I have a question. Is it 1 million one time, so they get $1 million and then that's it?
It's a good question. I do not know that.
20 years if they're getting.
No, it's a one time. It's like they're a widow's
Right,
benefit.
1 million time one time, $1 million in this day and age is not that much. And if she's 30 years old and you need
Yeah.
30 more years of his income at 70%, I think you'd be better off at the 70% for 30 years than the
Yeah.
1 million.
It's 1 million on top of the existing
Oh, it gets that in
benefits.
addition
See,
to it?
it's on top
what's in that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, yeah. And the all-candidate primary ranked choice voting general elections. The league has always been behind getting more people involved, to have it not so political. So the league is supporting the ranked choice voting issue on this one. It'd be interesting to see if it passes or not. Any general questions? Anybody else? I thank you, Eileen, Wendy, for your input. Anybody else, Kim?
I just am talking about Amendment 79. I just want to make sure you know it doesn't increase taxes. Your taxes are already, whatever taxes you pay that help fund Medicaid or state employees' insurance are going to stay the same. They'll just then allocate that money that's already in there to help pay for abortions for those people that are on Medicaid or those people who are teachers or county workers or state highway employees or whatever. So it's not going to change what you're paying in taxes. It's just then they can use the money that's already in there to pay for abortion.
And you're a nurse practitioner in women's health?
I am,
Okay.
and I have talked about abortion a lot. I also wanted to remind you all that 1%, if you're kind of not sure about abortions, 1% of abortions are done after 20 weeks. And the reason that happens is because we then find out there is something wrong with the baby, some anomaly that oftentimes is not compatible with life. So it's not, I mean, it's just solidifying our Colorado state laws in the Constitution. So what happened to Roe v. Wade, it'll be harder for that to happen in the state of Colorado. That's all.
Thank you. Anybody else?